You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. My name is Dan Rowitz. I'm joined this evening, 6:30 on Sunday afternoon, by John Townley. John, you've been to the game this afternoon, like I have, at Villa Park. Both just got home, and a nice, happy, lovely afternoon at Villa Park for the first time in what feels like a long, long time. I'm sure everyone feels that kind of that collective sigh of a lack of pressure from the whole Gerrard out situation, all that kind of negativity drifting away. So to go to Villa Park in a nice atmosphere and get a great performance and a win, which we'll talk about in more detail throughout the show, it's just a nice feeling, isn't it? 4-0, mate. 4.
We haven't had that this season anyway. We haven't been able to sit at Villa Park comfortable, have we, for how many months? And we don't get that much as Villa fans anyway, but it's nice, as you mentioned, because we've had so much pressure, because we've had such a negative couple of weeks, couple of months. It's nice to finally sort of see the other side of that. And it might not last forever, but just on Sunday afternoon.
Just for tonight.
It's really good. Yeah, for sure.
Well, we talked how many times in the last few weeks about, if Villa go 1-0 down, you kind of go, well, the best we'll do here is a draw. The best we'll do is a 1-0, and that kind of horrible feeling of knowing that we won't get anything out of this. Whereas today, the flip side of that, game's over after 14 minutes. Up after 14 minutes. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I wasn't saying it was game over even after 3-0, to be honest, because you're right, let's just get to half time. I was texting you when I was like, if we can finish the second half, we'll be okay. But no, brilliant. Just, obviously we'll get on to it, but the 4 goals is obviously brilliant, the clean sheet as well. But I was more impressed about how we sort of, as I say, managed the game, how well organised we were playing against the Brentford team. That's their thing. They don't have a star-studded squad apart from probably Ivan Toney and obviously Jan Eriksson last year. But that team, a lot of those have been Championship players for most of their careers and not Premier League players. So, if you're going to have to beat Brentford, you're going to have to be well-drilled, disciplined, hard-working. So to put 3 past them the first 15 minutes was, exceptional performance, and how we continued it as well into the second half, won the second half as well. So, across the board, 9s out of 10s, it's really, really good day at Villa Park.
We've had a lot of kind of nice fan interactions at the moment on the podcast and in person today. I've had a couple of people talk about the show. So for something a little bit different, normally we'll have a kind of set kind of routine of, we'll talk about this and we'll talk about this and we'll have a little bit of chat off air. We'll go off the comments today. And I can't see the YouTube comments for some reason on the tab on the right-hand side, so I'll open that in a new tab in a second. But we'll get a bit of filler so people can drop talking points through. So if you want us to talk about McGinn or Dendoncker or Louise or whoever it is, flash up a comment or a question and we'll kind of go through the show by the fans' agenda. Try something a little bit different. Like I said, a few people came up to me today talking about the Gerrard Out podcast and how much they enjoyed it. And like I said, that kind of release of, okay, that's over now. It's a fresh start. It's the beginning of a new era, and how much they enjoyed that show, which was lovely. Had a lot of nice comments on social media as well, on DMs and YouTube comments. But it's kind of 2 various guys. Is one, Stu Greenhouse stuff, people tweeting things about that and sending me messages saying, oh, Stu Greenhouse, get him in, and kind of getting on board with the silliness of the podcast. But also a couple of podcast comments on the last show that you were on, John, kind of saying how much you've improved, how confident you see him now on the show, how you're going to go on to be one of the best journalists of our generation. And I sent them to you going, as much as that kind of sounds like we're getting carried away, they're nice, positive comments to get. And we've done these before where people are saying nasty things about you, and that's about us all. And that isn't nice. So when someone says something nice, it's nice to flag it and appreciate it and say, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's sort of why we do it. We want to bring good content to the table, and obviously we can't nail it every time, but once we do, to get nice comments and nice feedback, it gives you that extra boost in it. So yeah, keep them coming if we are doing a good job.
Yeah, of course. YouTube comments not showing for me for some reason, so we'll try our best with this. Maybe we'll just have to stick to Facebook. Yeah, maybe Facebook comments will feed the show instead. Let's talk about Aaron Danks first of all. I mean, an anagram for Stu Greenhouse all along. I'm only joking. It just comes out of nowhere. Been at the club a little while, obviously, coming as a coach. Been a coach for a long, long time. Pre-match media stuff about having family in the stadium and fans and being a local lad and all those kind of things. And I don't know how best to word this, and we'll try and work it out as we go through. But it's almost less about what Aaron Danks has done, because we've had 2 training sessions since then, or 2 days at least. A recovery session after Fulham on Friday and a session on Saturday, I would presume. No press conferences or anything to kind of distract us with. So it's not that Aaron Danks has suddenly made us this brilliant team overnight, because he's not had the time to do that. It's almost what Gerrard wasn't doing that was the difference. That obviously it's tweaked the system. It's a 4-2-3-1 instead of the rigid, boring, narrow 4-3-3. Obviously, that is a tweak. That is a change. The personnel dropping McGinn, which again we'll talk about in a sec. But it's almost that kind of letting the handbrake off that Gerrard must have been having, because again we'll talk about it as we go. But like the closing down and the pressing and stuff, like that's not something they've been coached to do. Like in the last 2 days, like, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It's almost like they were being told not to do that before, which feels and seems absolutely bizarre, because obviously we scored early in that in the first minute, and that does change it, and the confidence does play a factor. But that was a totally different performance from Villa that we've seen there, and even in the best under Gerrard, some of the good wins that we've had in this time, 3-0 against Leeds and the 4 against Southampton, I still feel like today was a better win than any of Gerrard's stuff.
Yeah, I agree. As I mentioned earlier, the 4 goals was nice, and that was almost because we had so much confidence in the final third, and we were playing in that system that we all know that suits us so well. But it was the organisation that really got me. We were so well drilled. We were, off the ball really good, on the ball really good. Dendoncker and Luiz, that pivot sort of holding between, Buendia moving forward, and the wingers who were, as I mentioned, really confident as well. It all worked really nicely, and it all sort of. We did get those goals when we were on a high almost straight away. I mentioned to the people I sit next to, when Brentford turned us, you almost thought that was almost an advantage to us in a way, although it was booed because you want to play at the Holt in the second half. You felt that sort of energy in the stadium before the game because we had such a positive because Gerrard had gone and there was that sort of newfound energy, as I mentioned. Now that we're kicking against the Holt and in the first the first 10, 15 minutes that we got the 3 goals in, it almost works in our favour, is what I thought.
Suck the ball in.
Yeah, basically. And by 3-0, as you mentioned, the game is over, and most Villa fans wouldn't have believed it, but Frank said I think it was basically impossible to come back from that, because Brentford aren't a free scoring team themselves, and they've been on the end of a few hidings this season, where I think Newcastle put 5 past them, I think, at St James's. But no, excellent performance. And as you mentioned, I think a lot what Gerrard sort of wanted to bring to the table, you couldn't see what was going on. And it's just bizarre how 2 days later, or how many days it was since Fulham, 3 days, we're all of a sudden a team that we're supposed to be, and all the players are playing 9s out of 10s. For a manager just to leave and we get that sort of reaction, it doesn't quite, it doesn't reflect well on Gerrard, to a point.
It really
we don't want to.
It's embarrassing, I think.
We don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to, sort of hark on about it, but it's just bizarre how we can flip like that. You look at Leeds losing 3-2 to Fulham today, and they're having a shocker. How can that team not score against 10 men in the second half of that game? How can we not beat Nottingham Forest, although they beat Liverpool at that point in the season anyway? They were, they could have been on the end of a hiding against most teams. So it's just bizarre. But I think I almost want to draw a line under it and let's move on. Let's take this result and carry on with the season and forget what's just happened in the last, couple of months. But it is strange to see how a team can flick like that. And I was questioning, do we have the players? We're in a relegation fight at the moment. Have they got the sort of attitude for it? I think, at the moment, you look at some of the players that we have and you might have questioned that. But no, the sort of the fight that they showed today and the sort of finesse that they played with too, it's, really, really positive. Performance, and obviously the 4 goals and the result goes with it. But yeah, for me, the performance was that's what I wanted to see from the game.
I'll just rewind a little bit to what you said about switching halves again. It's booed. Me and my dad always say, whenever this happens, we'll seem to lose, or if it feels like that, it's not what you want to be doing. I did wonder afterwards though whether, obviously Martinez was captain today, he's the goalkeeper. The sun was on the Holt end's goal in the first half and a little bit of the second. So I wonder whether it was actually Martinez won the toss and opted to change it just to not be playing with the sun in his eyes, potentially. Just as something different, because obviously he's a goalkeeper. Maybe an outfield player wouldn't even think of that, so wouldn't think to switch. But again, just a guess. I'm not sure. But I thought that was semi-interesting in my own head that we played not with the sun in our eyes in the first half, and Brentford's keeper did have to do that. Just on Aaron Danks quickly, again, some kind of level of frustration here for me that we've had like a new manager bounce without a new manager, just an existing member of staff that was already there. And you think, it was like Aaron Danks sat at the back of the classroom while Gerrard's talking, thinking, I won't do this, I won't do that, I won't play him again, I'd switch formation, I'd do this. Like, he's got this idea in his mind, maybe throughout the whole season, questioning Gerrard in his own head, thinking, well, if I was in charge, I'd do this. And then he suddenly gets a go at the gig and absolutely puts Gerrard's performances to shame, to be honest. And like I said at the start, there might be some recency bias in this a little bit. Even Gerrard's best wins didn't feel as good as that performance did today. I don't know whether, again, I can only see 50% of the comments here. I don't know whether the Facebook audience or whether you agree with me, but that felt like a kind of Villa that we've not seen since. I saw some say it was our best performance since we got promoted. Now, I'd argue probably the Liverpool 7-2 is the best performance, but one that we've probably seen in the flesh at a full Villa Park since we got promoted. That's probably one of the best games we've played. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. Whenever we would win under Gerrard, again, at least this season and parts in last season, apart from the little run that we had, it was always it was kind of a close run thing, apart from those Leeds and that Southampton game. But it's just, I don't know, you want to follow it up as well. For this game alone, I know we're only assessing it, but you don't want to get too carried away. But I think the manner in we did it, because everyone was so 9 out of 10s across the board. The system that we played, I think everyone in the stadium, or most Villa fans, wants us to see that 4-2-3-1 system because it brings the best out of our creative players. And we know, because we have so much quality going forward, if we can unlock a Buendia or I know we started on the bench, but Coutinho, Leon Bailey was excellent today. If you can get the best out of those players, the rest of the team can sort of fit behind it, because we do have those hardworking players and players who are tactically astute because they played international football. Dendoncker plays for Belgium. Luiz, we know, plays for Brazil. 3 bids for Arsenal in the end of the summer window. So we know we've got top players, but it's getting the best out of them. And Gerrard was sort of hell bent on making this 4-3-3 work with attacking fullbacks, and then in his last game, he takes out Matty Cash to bring in Conte, who's a centre half. None of it made sense, really didn't. And then now we're looking like a team that should be feared, because you've won 4-0, and maybe a lot of neutrals didn't watch us because we weren't on live TV. But refreshing your phone, they must have been thinking, Villa 3-0 up in 15 minutes. That's some going, especially as I mentioned against a Brentford team that's what they're known for. They're known for the hard work, and especially against Villa, I don't think they've lost to us, have they? Since we got relegated to the Championship back in 2016.
Yeah, we've played I don't know, 7 or 8 times or whatever it would be now since we got relegated. Obviously, 3 seasons in the Championship, playing them twice a season, last year and then this. Draw, loss was the pattern all the way through till today. So finally a win to break the record. Our first win against them since something like 1953. Obviously, we didn't play them between 1953 and 2016 or whatever, but again, mad stat there. Comment from Ross, probably one of our first talking points. The brave choice of formation, changing it. And Ian says stick to the same team and formation for the next game. And when the team news dropped through at 1 p.m, again, the clamour kind of for 4-2-3-1 feels pretty evident from fans through a long period of time now. The 4-3 didn't work, didn't quite suit the players. It's more of a flat back four rather than this attacking fullback kind of nonsense. John McGinn dropping to cover a fullback. It's just none of that seemed to make sense. And as much as we're filling Aaron Danks with praise, and he rightly deserves it, he's not invented the wheel today. He's put players in their better positions, give them a bit of confidence. I don't know what the team talk would have been like, but kind of took the shackles off a little bit. And there was that energy, there was that desire, that work rate, and I'd have a lot of talk about whether the players were they playing for Gerrard, were they kind of throwing it in? We were saying if Gerrard sticks around, we'll be relegated. Or maybe these players aren't very good. I think what today's told me, and again, it's an isolated 90-minute performance, although a performance that we actually played for 90 minutes for the first time in a long time, instead of just playing for a half and then being crap for a half. But what that performance has shown is that with a good coach and somebody who knows what they're doing, this squad is a top 10 side this season. Like, this season isn't a write-off, because obviously we're not a million miles away. Nobody's cut off adrift at this point. A good coach will get stuff out of these players, and Gerrard couldn't. As much as we don't want to talk about Gerrard too much, you do wonder what the hell were we doing before, because the players look like different players, and the Fulham game was 3 days ago. So how does that work?
I know it is a relevant point, mentioning that Gerrard couldn't get the best out of his players. And again, I was wondering, have we bought? What have we bought? And where are we? Are these players good enough to keep us in the league? Because it was that bad. And what we were seeing over the course of months was a team that you didn't know what formation they were playing, what we're trying to do with the ball, off the ball. We looked poor. And we went back to basics. There was no strategy, and whatever Gerrard was trying to implement, I don't know what it was, but it didn't work. Again, let's just draw a line in that and move forward. But no, I think the 43, someone mentioned it was brave, possibly brave to change it, because the players have been in the formation that is in that system for months. But we all know going to get the best out of a Buendia in that number 10 role. Bailey playing off a flank with players around him, so he's not so isolated. Ollie Watkins is good as well. But those two sitters for me, that was what was so important. It lets Louise have a bit of freedom. Dendoncker, we haven't had that big presence in the middle of the pitch for, I don't know, years probably. Obviously, Kamara's injured at the moment, who can do a similar role, but I thought Dendoncker was excellent. And then the back four was obviously good too. We didn't give them, apart from a couple of chances, I think it was in the second half. But no, it's just an excellent performance. And yeah, I'm not too sure where Gerrard stands after all of that, because again, it's just clear evidence that whatever he was trying to do, it didn't work. And again, I'm not too sure why he was so stubborn on playing a certain system, and it's mind-boggling really. And the way that we've played today, it kind of just proves that those players are capable, and that again, a coach that might come in the coming weeks, they've got something to work with. And it's, yeah, I kind of mentioned when Suarez left against Fulham, I think he was probably so annoyed because that group of players looked really poor and we were on the end of a hiding against a newly promoted team. But then a couple of days later, we played Brentford team who are, decent. And we've made them look, really, really average there. So clearly we do have the squad and the players capable of at least making that top 10 bid. And that's without Kamara, that's without Carlos. And the bench is really good as well, who we brought on Coutinho, Sanson.
We had 5 subs for the first time as well, I think. Which again, you always look at our squad and think there's a good bit of depth there. There are options, but we've only ever made 3 subs all season, I think. And it clearly wasn't working, so we should have been making 5. Whereas today, it was almost a little bit like, well, we're 4-0 up, so go on, Cameron Archer, go and have a run out. You might as well see if you can make it 5.
McGinn and Ramsey on the bench as well. You kind of forget to mention, you forget McGinn wasn't playing, you forget Ramsey wasn't playing. These are all options that can come in either off the bench or for the next game. The Premier League's so detailed, and there's so much quality in it at the moment. You can flick through formations at any point for any of the game, in-game, different patterns, different changes. You really do need that squad, and we've got it as today's proven.
We'll talk about McGinn and Ramsey a little bit later. There's a couple of talking points from, everything kind of stems from team news, doesn't it? Because the decisions made there are talking points for afterwards. I also thought it was interesting that whenever Ollie Watkins has played wide for us, it's been off the left, and Bailey's always played on the right-hand side. Yet again, Aaron Danks comes in and goes, actually, you know what? Leon Bailey on the left, Ollie Watkins on the right. For the most part, that's what it was. And again, they looked in their most effective positions on those sides. So again, you just wonder, is that their preferred position, or is this Aaron Danks thinking, I need to try something different? Or did Steven Gerrard even bother to find out whether they prefer to play on the opposite sides? Again, it just seems such a basic thing that whenever those two do play wide under Gerrard, they played on the opposite side to the way that Aaron Danks has put them out. And now we're sat here going, that's probably Leon Bailey's best performance in a Villa shirt. He's playing on the wrong side the whole time, that's why.
True, but as we know, though, he likes to cut in on his left for Bayer Leverkusen. He was mainly playing down the right. Watkins, when he first came in as a professional, was playing off the left. So that, in a way, it's like, everyone wanted 4-2-3-1, and you just kind of drop the players in. But no, Danks did have that subtle tactical tweak to put
that
Watkins
did switch as well, of course, but for the majority, they were on those sides.
But that's not something that I would have expected him to do, and I would have questioned it, to be honest, if you told me that before the start of the game, and it paid off. So credit where it's due. I wouldn't have done that, and I don't think many of the Villa fans would have as well, because it makes sense for Watkins and Bailey to be inverted and come inside, because that's what they want to do. They want to score goals. But no, every time we sort of counter-attacked, it would be Bailey coming in and taking the ball off his left. I think our second goal coming through that one, Ashley Young with a good ball. Bailey could just sweep across to Danny Ings. That's maybe Watkins. He's cutting inside, and it's a bit messy. So it's no credit to Danks and Cutler and the rest of the team. I think they had a massive job bringing the players back, to a sort of mental state where they can carry on, because they've just been booed off against Fulham. They've been battered, and they've only won 2 games all season. But then it was another thing to go tactically against Thomas Frank, who we know the Villa board admire as well. So that sort of knocked him out the running, I presume.
I don't want him anymore. Thomas Frank just failed his Villa job audition there, didn't it, this afternoon? No, that was the real thing. You just didn't want the Villa jobs. So, forget it. Let's not play today, lads. I don't want to move to Villa. Maybe I'd have like, if it was him, let's forget appointing Thomas Frank. Let's appoint who Brentford will replace Thomas Frank with, because Brentford seem to do everything right, that whoever they replace him with would be better than Thomas Frank anyway. Yeah, so that's one talking point out of the way with the wide players. Again, Leon Bailey thought it was his best game for us. Some of the little moments during the game, we just think, yeah, this is why we're not seeing this before. And again, that's what the frustration comes back to, that these players are capable of a good performance. So what the hell has been happening for for the whole of this calendar year, effectively? And I don't know whether it was a case of not playing for Gerrard, but they were playing in a system they clearly didn't enjoy and weren't comfortable with, because today they've switched system and it looked a lot better, a lot cleaner. Like we said, scoring early is obviously great for confidence, and it's a confidence game. But again, things like work rate and desire looked much more improved than we've seen all season. The other big probably talking point is the McGinn and Ramsey dropping the captain for the first time. I think he's played something like I think he started something like the last 29 games in a row or something. I saw pre-match and there were people in the comments saying things like, oh, he should have been dropped 25 games ago or 20 games ago or whatever, which, yeah, whatever you think of John McGinn. But that's been made a more difficult decision this season because he's been captain. Steven Gerrard's kind of put him on that pedestal of, you're the captain now, and it said that doesn't make him undroppable. It kind of did, because he probably should have been dropped earlier in the season. In the 11th game, he's been subbed off for 3 or 4 games in a row, but he doesn't fit in a 4-2-3-1 unless he's playing in maybe the number 10 role or further forward than the 2 sitting anyway. But that's Buendia's role or Coutinho's role. So I struggle to see where John McGinn fits into that as the captain, which is a little bit bizarre. But again, not reinventing the wheel in terms of from Danks, in terms of the formation switch and the personnel, but having like the stones to go, yeah, I'm dropping the captain. Kind of respect that, to be honest. And it's paid off because we've won 4-0.
Yeah, and it was to the benefit of the team. And let's get it clear: John McGinn doesn't turn a bad player overnight or over the course of a couple of months. Of course. Like, we know what John McGinn can give us, and he was playing in a system and in a position and a role that didn't suit him whatsoever. And then he was given that captain armband as well, so that probably put pressure on him. There was probably a couple of games where John McGinn probably thought, and I'm not saying he wanted to be dropped, but take me out of the firing line a little bit, maybe like today. Yeah. And he just want to be on the bench all the time. But today we needed to go back to that. Use the system that we used today. And it's clearly had its rewards. Then Donker and Louise, it's all over the comments. Like, as a pair, they were excellent. So John McGinn doesn't fit in that. You're right.
There's a fly or like a daddy long legs or something flying around. Sorry.
But no, and then McGinn. Sorry, you've got the 2 holding players there, and then
you're right.
Yeah, that's this is mad. And then Buendia is a 10, so you have the energy, you have everything that John McGinn can give you, but in a system and in a shape that you don't need to sort of be of the deficit of the team necessarily. And then you can bring him off the bench when Dendoncker gets tired, and again that worked. But from the off, we just needed that. And credit to Danks, he has, as you mentioned, he's got the sort of the capability to say to McGinn, I know you're the captain, but I'm going to drop you for this one. And it's a shame we got leaked out, and I don't know who, but I think that's obviously a problem itself.
Yeah, not a fan of that at all.
No. That was a big problem. And coming into the game, there was a bit of negativity about that because, there's a reason why that's happened. But no, McGinn wasn't missed in the way that we played. I sort of forgot he was there, but that's not a slight on McGinn. It's just simply that you need a squad of players to play each and every game differently, because each opponent gives you different threats. And today was a day that we needed that sort of pivot as a 2. And again, I to mention on Buendia, I thought he was excellent. When he came off, we missed that energy. We missed that sort of press with surroundings, and Watkins. He was just buzzing about all the time. Obviously, we know his quality on the ball, but there was I think he made like 2 or 3 tackles in a row at one point in the second half. That's something that you see from John McGinn. So yeah, while we didn't miss McGinn, we know what he's going to give us throughout the season, and it was about time that he sort of took a step back, take him out the firing line. And when he came on as well, I thought it was really nice that the Holt started singing his name too. We're fully behind him. So yeah.
Next point there from Colin. I really like the fact that they sang McGinn's name when he came on. Again, easier to do when you're 3-0 up or 4-0 up at that point. Again, same for Ramsey. It's all a nice positive atmosphere, which is obviously what we want. If John McGinn's coming on at 1-0 and it's a more nervous game, and Dendonker's playing well and McGinn comes on through, and you might think, not quite sure about that, but the game is won by then. So it's nice to kind of just go, right, go and play this last half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever it was. There is no pressure on you. And I think McGinn did okay. Thought Ramsey come on and played all right as well. The moments when he kind of drive forward and did what we know he can do. But you do lose a little bit of that kind of impetus with 5 subs to an extent. But again, the game's won, so I don't want to read too much into it. But Coutinho wasn't as good as Buendia was. McGinn and Ramsey wasn't as good as Dendoncker was, and whoever else came off. But yeah, kind of by the by, we've won the game. But I just thought, interesting from Danks, who again has been sat there this whole time thinking his own little things, and then comes in and gets a chance and switches up, drops the captain, wins 4-0, goes home and goes, happy days. Fair play to him. One on the atmosphere quickly for Matthew John. Atmosphere was unreal today, and again, how good was Ashley Young setting the example? We talked a little bit about Ash Young, me and my dad on the way there, about in the kind of poorer performances that Ash Young's been our best player, a 37-year-old who's been at the club once before and left and come back. I mean, if that's the standard, how far we've fallen. But obviously Young's been really good. If I was a player that was 23, 25, 27, watching Ashley Young come in and rip it up being the best player at 37, I'd be thinking, Christ, I need to up my game here because I'm being outdone by somebody 10 years my senior. But he does set the example, and he does the kind of dark art side of the game well as well. And we'll talk about the defence a little bit now, I suppose, because again, we're jumping all over the place here. Another clean sheet is very important. Good for Emi Martinez, his sleep schedule as well, to get 40 winks for him. Ashley Young, again, probably one of the standout players, even in a 4-0 win when we play well. Obviously, going forward, man of the match options are plenty there. Defensively and what he offered going forward as well. Ashley Young's probably, again, a standout for man of the match there in a 4-0 win, which is crazy at 37 years old.
I know. Yeah, he was, again, he didn't put a foot wrong, and neither did sort of any player on the pitch today, but he just stands out, and he does everything so right. And it's his little fist bumps to the halt as well, and then the lower Trinity, he just gets it, and he gets the crowd. He's whipping them up all afternoon, and he, again, setting the example. But as a 37-year-old doing that, I think as you mentioned, he knows that if he's playing at the top of his game, everyone else is looking at him thinking, okay, well, I have to be on my game, because as you mentioned, it's a 37 Ashley Young. It's not, prime Ashley Young, and we know how good he was back then. But yeah, it sets that example, and that's exactly what you need. I honestly feel like we have leaders all over the place in terms of Tyrone Mings, who we know what is a natural leader himself. Emi Martinez is a natural leader. John McGinn can lead. Danny Ings' experience. We have them everywhere. I don't think that captain's armband needs to be a thing of, who's got it. That's why I think Emi Martinez should be captain, because there's no sort of responsibility on someone's shoulders. But we know who the leaders are in the team. We don't need to make a big thing of it. And I feel like the whole passing it along to different players and then taking Mings out and he's not even a vice captain and making Carlos a vice captain, there's just no need. Let's just,
there's a problem that what didn't exist. It became a problem because Steven Gerrard created it as a problem. Crazy.
Yeah. And you would have thought that Gerrard, who again is clearly a natural leader himself, would have been able to spot that and not made it himself. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the summer there's a decision to be made there. But today I think it definitely showed that Martinez was captain. You had leaders across the pitch, and everyone knew their roles, and it was a team effort. And that was the sort of key to win 4-0 against Brentford. Everyone's got to be on song, and everyone's got to be putting 9s out of 10s. And Ashley Young, for the player that he is, he set that standard playing at left back. So another top performance from him.
I'm just Googling Ash's player rating because you mentioned about a lot of kind of 9 out of 10s performances this afternoon. So just a quick scan of what Ash gave them. Lesser than 9 out of 10s. Martinez 7, Cash 7, Conser 7, Mings 8, Young 8, Dendoncker 8, Louise 8, Leon Bailey 9, man of the match, Buendia 8, Watkins 8, Ings 8. I would have maybe chucked a couple more higher than that, but every opinion is respected. And there's a couple of comments earlier on about kind of great performance, fantastic, etc. But kind of let's not get carried away. It's one game or somewhere. Don't know where that is, which is fair. But again, it's been such a negative season and negative 2022. Let's enjoy it for at least Sunday evening, and then we'll go back to being serious and gloom tomorrow. One from Ryan. Dendoncker's performance was immense, and there's ones further down about Dendoncker and Louise looking like Rice and Phillips. I can't find it. Lots of love for Dendoncker, again, another man of the match kind of candidate, possibly. I didn't think, as much as it's a 4-2-3-1 with two 6s effectively, I kind of thought, well, Louise isn't a 6. I'm not quite sure about that. They weren't deep. They weren't sitting midfield, sat there kind of blocking, back 4, then it's 2, and they'll just sit deep and do nothing. There's a lot of times when Dendoncker himself, as the more defensive of the two, is venturing forward and thinking, Christ, what's he doing up there? And you've got kind of like a back 4 and Emi Martinez, and then this massive gap because we're on the counter-attack, and even the 2 6s have moved further forward as well. Dendoncker very, very good. Again, you look at it and go, why is he not coming earlier? Again, did Steven Gerrard not able to swallow some pride over the John McGinn thing? Because again, Dendoncker could have come in at any point earlier this season and done a job. And Louise, again, probably one of his best performances in recent times, really stood out as somebody who carried the ball. There was one stage where he's up in kind of the upper third of the pitch in the Trinity and sprints all the way back to track back for somebody. I think it goes out for a throw-in or a corner. And you think, well, that's not coaching. Aaron Danks hasn't made him do that in the last couple of days. It's almost that Steven Gerrard was potentially not telling them to do things like that because the work rate in the press and being busy and having that energy and closing people down and trying to win the ball back in Brentford's half is something we've not done against anybody this season under Steven Gerrard. So again, why was that an option? Why weren't we playing like that all season? I'm going to keep coming back to it because it's so frustrating.
You mentioned I think it was from a corner, wasn't it, when Louise run all the way back and the whole team was coming back.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was Danks said after the game that there was a clip, that exact clip they showed the team after the game, and that was the only thing they kind of showed them was how you won the game today. It was a team effort, and it was as a collective. You worked really hard, and that was late in the game as well, keeping that clean sheet. That was really important to all of them. But on Dendoncker, no, excellent. Up until he come off, he was my man of the match, to be fair. But you can't really give him because everyone was so good. You can't give him that man of the match because he didn't play the last 25 minutes or so. But he was everywhere. He was excellent. He was nipping in to little challenges here and there. He wasn't, as you mentioned, he wasn't just sitting back. And he's obviously been told, him and Louise, nip in where you can, be aggressive, be assertive, and when you've got the ball, play with it as well. I always think Louise works better when he's working off someone. He's not sitting deep and trying to look for balls out wide. Can he bounce the ball off someone? Can he get forward and link play? That's what he does best. That's what he does best with Wendy and other players. And as I mentioned before, Bailey, he needs people to bounce off to. They're all ball playing, footballers. So yeah, I think as a two, they work really well. Dendoncker particularly, just because he offered that size, which we hadn't had previously. And he was, everything he did was brilliant. And you would have thought that's what we'd do against Newcastle, because I don't see how Danks would change it unless he goes to a free, because Newcastle are obviously a very good team themselves, and we're probably going to be, less aggressive, maybe less on the front foot, because we're probably going to get picked off if we're not using that home crowd like we did today, playing at St James's. So that's a very different game. So I'd be surprised if he did exactly what we did this week, but who knows? Maybe have a new manager in charge by then. You never know. But on Dendoncker, really good performance, and I think he needed that because, as you mentioned, he'd come to the club for 12 to 15 million or something like that, 10, 15 million, I'm not too sure, which sounds cheap, but if you're not going to play him, it's a waste of money, isn't it? He was just sitting on the bench with Sanson. So under Gerrard, he had no opportunity, but in that midfield three, I was saying it for weeks, if Gerrard is so adamant that that's what he's playing, no one's going to get in over McGinn, no one's getting over Jacob Ramsey, and that holding midfield spot was Kamara's to lose, and if he's not playing, it's Douglas Luiz's. So there was any other player was just being blocked. There was no way in almost. But as soon as you play that double pivot, you can take things out. You can manipulate that for the opponent.
John McGinn or Jacob Ramsey could have played the number 10 position if Buendia wasn't cutting it, or if Coutinho was unavailable, if one of those was playing on the left or the right. John McGinn can play a little bit further forward like he does for Scotland. Again, I'm not just going to say that John McGinn is suddenly going to become a world builder overnight if he plays further forward. But again, that's an option that he's not a six, so don't play him in a six. He doesn't quite work in the midfield three because he's doing the same job as Jacob Ramsey. It's one or the other. I don't think both can play. So now if having the Dendoncker / Kamara / Louise as two of those sixes, Callum Chambers could do a role in there if you're absolutely desperate. Again, I wouldn't be massively for that, but it's a more suited option than John McGinn, to be honest. That at least frees up John McGinn and Ramsey to be one of the forward options if you need them to be as well. And it's just more options. I think stubbornness was Gerrard's downfall, to be honest. A comment about Danny Ings earlier on, how sharp he was from Barry. How sharp did Ings look today? Again, got a little bit of stick over time, rightly so. He scored goals elsewhere, then comes to Villa and looks a shadow of his former self. Watkins getting picked persistently ahead of him in a one-striker system. Ollie Watkins not taking his chances. Bring back Danny Ings, he'll score for us, and then plays the first game of the season against Bournemouth as a lone striker. Absolutely nowhere near it. Again, what was Steven Gerrard doing? But play the last couple of games with Watkins off the left, Ings up front. Again, just looks sharper from the off, everybody. And I know the early goal kind of sets you up differently. It throws Brentford's game plan out the window a little bit because you 1-0 down after 60 seconds. VAR, by the way, checking every Villa goal for something. Don't know what in the stadium, not seen it back. potential offsides or whatever, and you just think maybe VAR are checking it because I just think, well, Villa can't have scored a legitimate goal. We've got to check it to see if it's legit first of all. But yeah, Ings looked sharp, took his goals well, lively, involved in the build-up play as well, linking up very well with Bailey off the right and Watkins off the right, Bailey off the left. And yeah, just looks a potent threat again. In terms of the penalty, I don't know where you sit. Ashley Young looks like he was taking it to begin with. I don't know, there was a conversation between those two and Ings took it off him or Young gave it away to Ings. But I thought, why isn't Ings taking this? Get somebody on more than 2 goals this season. Danny Ings step up and take it.
I almost thought that was Ashley. I think he knew what he was doing. He was taking the ball. I think he knew Dan Ings was going to take
bit of wind up.
Let's just take the heat off things. He doesn't want David Raya staring him down for a couple of minutes because VAR were checking it. You know what I mean? I think that was almost like I don't think there was a conversation. He almost just turned around and gave the ball to Ings, and it was a simple job. So I'd almost put that down to not dark arts, but just good thinking from Ashley Young. Let's not let them get in Danny Ings' head, I suppose. But yeah, I was a bit shocked that he took the ball straight away. I was thinking, I'm not sure about this. But no, it was a good penalty as well. But yeah.
A couple of kind of points away from football instances a little bit, just on the strikers. Danny Ings coming out with a supporter wearing headphones. I don't know what that was for, loud noises and overstimulation or whatever. Danny Ings also wearing a pair of headphones with the mascot as well, as like a nice touch of, you're wearing them, I'll wear them, we'll do this together. I thought that was really a nice classy thing from Ings to do. And also Watkins at the end, again, wasn't on TV, so I don't know whether it'll be seen anywhere. But he's got a relationship with a Brentford fan, hasn't he? A young kid he's had photos with and given shirts to and stuff. And I don't know whether it was him, because obviously I'm a million miles away, but there was a kid and a parent waving at him, really jumping up and down at Ollie Watkins, and he ran all the way over, had a chat, had a photo and stuff like that. So again, I assume that was the same kid as a Brentford fan. I've not seen it anywhere since, but again, just nice little moments, and these things are always nicer when you've won, because you can pick out these little things and go, just nice positive stuff to talk about instead of moaning about Steven Gerrard or systems or formations. We've won a game, played well. There's a nice little kind of nice community feel about it all with those little side things as well. So yeah, nice that was.
The Danny Ings, the mascot is where I think he plays for the All Ability Counts team, and then
right.
Where the earphones, I presume Ings chose to wear them as well. So that was a really good touch. As you say, it's just like positive things. It's just crazy how these, where we were last week to where we are now, there's just a really good vibe about the place. So we really need to kick on and credit to the club for the atmosphere that they built as well today.
We need to talk about Aaron Danks and his future in a sec, but there's a few comments earlier about Aston McPhee and kind of like, finally, we've done something positive from a set piece. We've obviously kept a clean sheet as well, so we've defended our set pieces in instances that they happen as well. Probably, I don't know, unfair stick for Aston McPhee in recent weeks, but again, I feel like we've not tried anything creative like that for a while. So I don't know whether that was stifled by Steven Gerrard potentially of, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to get Douglas Luiz to shoot from every corner instead. That's our tactic. But the first game that Steven Gerrard isn't there, we pull out a nice free kick corner routine that we score from. And again, little moments. Emi Martinez runs straight over to the dugout and hugs Aston McPhee. And then so does Ashley Young as he runs back from the celebration as well. So clearly something they've worked on with them. But yeah, just again, nice to see. And I feel like I've said it again a lot of times in this podcast, but again, lovely to see little things like that working. And he's a set piece coach. I expect us to do better from set pieces, because you can not be in a game and get a free kick or corner and score it and win. It's such a simple thing. Football is a simple game. How many times have we seen a free kick or a corner hit the wall or hit the first man? And you think, what a waste. So nice training ground routine coming off in the first 7 or 8 minutes of the game. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, Frank credited it straight away after the game as well. They're very much into their set pieces and the long throws and different things as well. Aren't they, Brentford? You can tell that because they're clearly very much data driven as a club. So that was the first thing he said about Villa. He said, really good set piece in the first couple of minutes. Yeah, fair play to Aston McPhee. He does work very hard on the set pieces behind the scenes. He gets a lot out of the players, and he gets buy-in from the players as well, because we do try things and often time it doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, you forget about it 2 minutes later. But when one does go in, we're probably going to be talking about it for a few more weeks, because if we have another dry run, we'll be coming back to this one and saying, but we know we can score from corners and set pieces and catch opponents out, and we do try most things, every game that we play. And the Louise one when he hit the post, I think it was going in. I think David Raya just literally scratched it out the air.
Oh, did he?
On the replay, yeah, it was a really good
Oh,
save.
nice.
He's not big for a goalkeeper, is he, David Rice? I'm surprised that we didn't do that more often.
Yeah, good keeper though.
Yeah, he's a good keeper, but he's only 6 foot. I say only 6 foot.
I wish I was only 6 foot.
5'7" I am. 5'6". But no, really good. Danks said after the game too, it was perfect for the coaching team and probably confidence for them. Obviously, a 4-0 win for Danks is good, but Cutler had his clean sheet. He had his set piece goal, so everything about the performance was almost perfect. It was too good. Like when Mbeumo missed that open goal, you must have thought, "Yep, today's our day," sort of thing. So
almost the total opposite of Fulham, where everything went wrong there. Red card, an own goal, no goals, manager sacking. 3 days later, everything goes right. You win a penalty. VAR doesn't intervene. You score 4 goals. You keep a clean sheet. You score from a set piece. It's two total opposite games in 3 or 4 days. It's mad at what the turnaround is. And we said earlier about this new manager bounce, without actually having a new manager, or new permanent manager anyway, with Aaron Danks acting as an interim or a caretaker or whatever the actual role has been named as. What happens with Aaron Danks now? Because we were talking last week, like 2 days ago, about what happens next. Because I always felt like they wouldn't want to get rid of Steven Gerrard, maybe at all, but they wouldn't want to do it until the World Cup break, because this nice, convenient 4 or 5 week period. Let's do it then. So now they've sacked him earlier than that. Has that kind of accelerated their managerial search? Can they get who they wanted? Does it all bring it forward now? Are they going to panic? Are they going to rush? Are they going to appoint potentially the wrong man because they're doing it sooner than they would like to? Aaron Danks winning his first game 4-0 buys them an extra week of thinking time, I assume, at the very least, because if Aaron Danks had lost today, we'd have been going, okay, still not working, still not quite right. Let's get a manager in quick. Another big game at Newcastle. Hurry up, let's sort this out.
Yeah.
I now feel like, and again, feel free to disagree with me, you and people watching, if Aaron Danks took charge of Aston Villa against Newcastle next Saturday, I'd be fully on board with that. Because we played well. It was the best performance of the calendar year. Give him another go. If it gives you more time to sort your managerial appointment out, go with that. I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah, and no one's calling Aaron Danks the next coming of, whoever. And I don't think he'd want to be in that position where people are expecting him to, now can we get a result against Newcastle? And, do you want the job? It's not like that at all. Aaron Danks is an exceptional coach. He worked for the 21s with England. He worked with Company at Anderlecht. He's not overqualified to be a Premier League manager, but he can be a manager if that's the route he wants to take. So this is an audition for him. And I think when he woke up this morning, or when he's been working with the team the last few days, he knows that this is his moment. And fans probably didn't realise who he was up until today, because he's almost been in the background. He was appointed by the club when Smith came in, and obviously not relieved of his duties when Gerrard left, because he wasn't part of Gerrard's team. And I think someone mentioned in the comments, potentially Gerrard might have not excluded the likes of Danks or McPhee or whatnot, but they're not his men. So maybe he didn't have a voice in that changing room. As we've seen today, he's taken out Gerrard's captain. He's done his own system. I know he works with the strikers primarily, so potentially that isn't his, it's not his bag to go up to Gerrard and say, we must try this and whatnot. But as you mentioned, it buys us more time. Against Newcastle, that's going to be a really tough game. I think we could have any manager in the world, to be honest with you. And I think going to there, I'd snatch a hand off for a point right away. Beat Spurs only an hour ago. So that'll be a win in the end. Wow. Yeah, if we can compete against them and get a point, that's an excellent result. And then you have Man United and Brighton. There's no rush to appoint a manager. The only thing I would say is clearly the club are trying to appoint a manager, and I say as soon as possible. We're not rushing it. But if in 3 weeks we don't have a manager, we've clearly not got who we wanted. So it's a sticky situation. At the same time, I'm fine with Aaron Danks taking the team because we've just beaten Brentford 4-0, and that's not a fluke. But if in a couple of weeks we don't have someone, then I would have presumed that Ruben Amorim isn't coming. Poch obviously isn't coming.
Unless those managers also think, well, I want to wait till the World Cup break. I'm more, especially if it's a manager that's still in work. They might think, well, I want to give another couple of weeks of my time to whoever I'm with at the moment. It is a strange situation because, again, you don't want to be like Wolves, who sack their manager going, we'll appoint someone else, and then all of a sudden go, we'll give it to our this caretaker guy. He can do it for the rest of the year. He's here till 2023. Again, strange club, Wolves. I mean, they are in trouble.
Yeah, with Wolves, I presume that maybe, I don't know if maybe Lopetegui said to them, maybe after the turn of the year, I'm ready to come back into management. Maybe that's, but Wolves they do their own thing, don't they? They kind of don't follow the sort of norm. But for us, in the next 2 weeks, if we're not getting close to someone, I'm wondering what we're doing in terms of who's available. Because if it's not going to be Tuchel, it's probably not going to be Poch. Amorim, I'm not too sure on if that's going to happen or not. If it's not those candidates or Emery or something like that, I think I mentioned it in the other podcast. I don't know who we're targeting or who the candidate is, unless it's like and it won't be, I'm certain, a Sean Dyche or a Benitez or those lot. I don't want any of them, and I'm sure the club don't either. But who's the middle ground?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know. So that's probably a bit negative, and I want to kind of keep it on my mind for now because we've just won. But I am a bit sort of worried about which direction we're going in terms of manager. So as long as Aaron Danks can keep getting performances, who knows?
Give him the job full time. It's a little bit of a strange situation because I'm not sure if they're in no rush to an extent because Aaron Danks has won today and give him Newcastle potentially. Pochettino's free on Tuesday. Sign him up. You know what I mean? Like if who they want is available this week, they obviously will sort it. We're just going to give Aaron Danks games for fun.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is that, again, I mentioned against Fulham, any manager or anyone watching that game, although they know we've got decent players, they're looking at the group and thinking, Jesus, what is going on there? Because they've just got battered 3-0 by Fulham. But then you flip it 3 days later and all of a sudden, that's how Villa can play. Like that's team's got real potential. And I wouldn't mind taking that on because I know that I can take them into the top 7. And that would be a massive achievement in terms of where the club's been in the last 15 years. That's the sort of energy that we want to sort of be building on now. And maybe, I don't know if Poch has said no or not. I think it's more of a case of, at least what people are saying, that he's not willing to go into management just yet. I don't know if it's a straight no, and I don't want to sort of...
Maybe he just wants Christmas at home.
Maybe so. But if we're watching that team and the project that we have, I don't know, like, come on.
It's the budget, isn't it? Like whoever is the next manager will be well paid while they're in the job and then get a big payoff if it all goes wrong, first of all, as they will get at most clubs. Villa can spend money if they need to, and there's an ambitious ownership and they want to get back into Europe. Any manager worth their salt should look at that and go, I want to be the guy to do that, not be wary of, I don't want to go there and mess that up, so I'm just going to kind of keep out of it.
Yeah, I think the issues for where an elite manager comes into play, like a Poch or an Emery or whoever, they're probably looking at a club and thinking, yeah, you've got good players and yeah, you've got an ambitious project, but have you got a football structure? Where does the power lie? Are these promises that you're going to fulfill?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's the sort of thing. But winning against Brentford 4-0, can we get a result against Newcastle? Those are the sorts of things that I do think managers would be looking at and thinking, oh, this team is good. There is a lot to work with here. And again, look at the bench that we had today. Look at Kamara and Carlos that are injured. You could just drop a couple of players in there that you'd like. That's a really good squad there. And
which is what we've been saying all along, which was what made the Gerrard era so frustrating. There's been a couple of comments in the last few days about will a manager look at Villa being 17th and go, I don't fancy that at all. And comments here from Andy. Oh, there's Les with Villas Boas. No, not that one. Andy, after today, surely the job looks a bit more attractive. And the same thing from somebody else. Can't find it. Saying like, we've won today, so it looks more attractive all of a sudden. But managers won't just look at the league table and go, don't fancy that, because it's about the squad. It's about the ability of the players that are there, the project, the ambition, the money, the wages, transfer budget. So
the whole package.
Being 17th and then winning today won't suddenly make Pochettino go, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. That does sound all right because they'll do their due diligence anyway. But today, as I just said, I've said a long time about this squad on paper. If everyone's on form and you don't get bad injuries and stuff, this squad with the right coach should be a top 10 outfit, pushing for top 8. Whether they actually do it, that should be around that ballpark. And the longer the Steven Gerrard era went on, the more that comment looked very stupid because a lot of the players weren't putting it in either. John McGinn's been poor. Ollie Watkins misses chances. Tyrone Mings will make a mistake here and there. And all of a sudden you think, well, actually, maybe these players aren't great. Maybe we are in a relegation battle. Then Aaron Danks comes out of nowhere, makes a couple of tweaks, put players in their preferred positions, and all of a sudden you think, oh, you know what? Maybe we can get in the top half again with a decent coach. So anyone worth a salt should hopefully look at us as a good project, like the Newcastle kind of project of heading in the right direction, in the right trajectory with the money and ambitions that they've got, and think the same of Aston Villa. I want to be the guy to revive that club back up to greatness, effectively, because the next manager will be, I think we worked out to be the 10th permanent manager since Martin O'Neill left, so 12 years or so.
About right, yeah.
You've got Houllier, McLeish, Lambert, Sherwood, Remy Gard, Di Matteo, Bruce, Dean Smith, Steven Gerrard, Newman. So 10 permanent managers since 2010 it's only not quite one a season because Paul Lambert had 2 or 3 seasons and so did Dean Smith. The rest of them, Steven Gerrard didn't last a year. Di Matteo didn't last a year. Gar didn't last a year. So Houdet didn't last a year. McLeish lasted just about a year, potentially, but probably not quite. He lasted a season. So that's not, I mean, what do you expect Villa to have done in that time? Chopping changing managers to that degree is going to get you back to square one every so often, and relegation in 2015 as well. So as much as the next appointment has to be right, because always you can say that the next one has to be right, or else it does need to be the one now that is here for 2, 3, 4 seasons. And I know managers don't get that time, but they've got to solidify us this season. And first aim is get us safe, because we are still down at the moment, but obviously we're a couple of wins and we are right around mid-table. Keep us safe, get as close to mid-table as you can. Next year, again, maybe another season of being 10th, 9th-ish with trying to push for Europe. And then the third season of new manager, or the second full season, now push for Europe. That's probably got to be the mini project. And obviously, as soon as you can do that, the better, because people will have looked at Eddie Howe and thought, well, is he the man to take Newcastle to the next step? But he did very well last year, and they sit in, 4th as of tonight with their win today. Eddie Howe could be taking Newcastle into Europe this season. So let's not kind of turn our noses up if it isn't Pochettino, Tuchel, whoever, this kind of elite manager. If it's this mid-level, Villas-Boas, Rodgers, Dyche, at least get behind them and see where it can go. If it's Rafa Benitez, less keen on that one out of all the options, to be honest. But the next one has got to be here for at least a year to try and do something. That's the first aim.
Yeah, it has to be the right point anyway, because this is the sort of the new era. If this one goes wrong, then I think there's a big change within the club anyway, and that's another carousel of different, people coming in and out of the club. And we are on that, I've mentioned before, if you stay stagnant in the Premier League, you're going to go down. That we know that's going to happen, like Everton did, and they probably should have gone down last year. That's where we'll be. So we have to push on. But yeah, tonight, I'm just going to enjoy the win and not worry about any new managers or whatever.
Agreed.
Until tomorrow morning when I start work at 7 a.m.
Well, I think it'll be Aaron Danks in charge for Newcastle as it stands, because it gives them that extra week's breathing room to sort things out.
It makes sense as well, doesn't it? So
with the win, there's why would change a winning team? So why change a winning manager? keep him in the job for the time being. I think we'll call it a day there, John. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Thanks for everyone for leaving comments. I did scan the YouTube comments in a different tab, but I can't flash them up on screen because something's gone wrong this end. But yeah, thank you for getting involved as always. Hopefully we've kind of covered most of the things we normally would in a post-match show, but it has been a little bit scattergun and all over the place, letting the chat decide where we go next. But I think we've left no stone unturned there. So John, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks everyone for tuning in and getting involved. As I said, we'll be back probably maybe for like a midweek Q&A on Tuesday or Wednesday potentially. But if Villa appoint a manager sooner than that, obviously we'll do a show about that. Maybe we'll look at the next 3 candidates or something like that. We'll see how it goes. But if not, we'll do like a Newcastle preview and all that kind of stuff. So just keep subscribe to the channel, keep your notifications on, all those kind of things, so you know when our next video comes out. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend for whatever remains. And we'll see you again soon. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.